I just wanted to check that you didn't feel like that was an unfair question.
No, I thought that was probably the most, like, when you were saying it, I was like, shit, you know? Like, that was the most like, oh shit, okay, that's true.
So Christopher and I are brothers, and we've obviously had tons of conversations over the years, and we're both serious and silly about all sorts of stuff. And Christopher agreed to have this conversation where we try exploring his belief, try to see where it comes from, what he thinks about it, and that's pretty much it. Do you have anything to add?
Not really.
Okay. All right. So what is it that you believe?
Okay. And I spoke about it a little bit, but I believe in, deep in my soul, I believe that there should be a separation of art and the artist. And this is something that I wrote a paper about when I was a freshman in college, and was super like, that was my claim, art versus the artist was like the whole topic. And
so I've opened chat. You should be able to see this. I'm just gonna, sometimes maybe I'll put little things in here so that we both can see them. But what I heard you say is there should be a separation between art and the artist.
Yeah.
Do you want to add something to that? Like, feel that out?
What I would say is that my 32-year-old self is a little bit different, and I don't know, we live in a different time, and I think this is an interesting conversation to have right now, because I wonder myself, like, sort of where I stand and where my belief has sort of meandered over the years.
Okay, great. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'll be trying to just sort of direct the conversation, like where it goes or whatnot. But I guess the first thing to start with is how confident are you that there should be a separation between art and the artist? Like, on a scale of 0 to 100, if 0 was there should be no separation and 100 is there should definitely be a separation, where do you fall?
That there should be.
Yeah.
I probably around 80%.
Okay. All right. So sort of moderate confidence that this is the case.
Yes, I think that for me it's like an idealism thing. It's like, ideally there should be, but
so maybe there's some exceptions somewhere, something like that, but like, this is sort of the platonic ideal.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, what's getting you to 80%? Like, what makes you more confident that this is true?
I think just like, so, one thing that you and I know is that I went to film school. And I guess you could call me an artist. And so it's sort of like something that I think it really started as like this this like Dawson's Creek type of dude that I sort of was. And I had this like conviction that, like, people in film school and even prior to that, they love all these directors, they love all these names and whatever. And to me, it's just like, it was always more about the work. Like, I don't care who made something. If I watch it, or if I look at it, or I touch it, whatever the artistic experience is,
right,
I appreciate it because I appreciate it as a piece of art. And I think there's part of me that, like, doesn't even want that bias of, knowing who created it. I think there's a part of me that, like, feels like that's sacred in a way.
Uh-huh. So
And
just to see if I understand, it almost sounds like you're saying you kind of wish you could experience art not even knowing who the artists are. Is that the case?
um to a degree,
Okay.
I get another satisfaction, another type of satisfaction out of, having a relationship already or having context already and being like, oh, I like this person, I like what they did. Sure. But I think if we're talking about art as a thing, like, if I make a video, I would like for that video to exist on its own,
Uh-huh.
not like, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I
All
don't
right.
know. It's like an
Let's,
MP4 file. Listen, like an
yeah.
MP4 file should just be that. It's a thing. You can say like directed by whoever, but like, I don't know, what you're experiencing should be the thing.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's
Let's,
all this other context creeping in.
yeah. So let's drill into it a little bit. So the kinds of contexts that come to mind for me, at least, are like, it's like legal responsibilities. So, if you have an MP4 file that's floating around and it records a crime, right? Like maybe that's different from I think what most people talk about when they think about this stuff, right? Like you're thinking more probably about like an artist makes something and their intention is X, but people see it as Y, but you're kind of saying it doesn't really matter what the artist thinks about a piece. It's like what it means to you. Is that where you're coming from?
That's part of it.
Okay.
That's part of it. I think that art can have intention from an artist, but
Okay.
everyone is going to experience it differently. My
Okay.
thing though is like, I mean, I guess it comes down to like, and this is a very mild example compared to some of the things that we may talk about, but like if someone, just hates M. Night Shyamalan, right? Like
Okay.
M. Night Shyamalan ding dong, like whatever. Like
Yeah.
they're not gonna go into a movie and be like, I'm gonna enjoy this. And there's something to be said for that too. Like, don't get me wrong, I like watching crappy stuff like because I know it's crappy stuff.
Uh-huh.
But when you have an opinion about someone who created something, I think that there should be some sort of separation between that opinion of that person and whether or not the art creates any sort of response. Whether you experience the art and appreciate it.
Okay. So if I'm reading between the lines correctly here, I feel like you're talking about like there's a director who's an asshole and people
Right.
are like, oh, I don't want to watch his stuff because he's an asshole. Is that
Yeah.
where you're coming from? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to restate this and be specific, what I'm hearing you say is that for you, the meaning or the what's to gain maybe from a piece of art should be independent from what the artist is like. Is that accurate?
I think ideally that's what I feel.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I hear you're really keying in on ideally. So is there something that are there like mitigating circumstances for this or what?
Well, I don't know. Things just get I it's not something that I've really sat down and explored deeply my thoughts on since I wrote that paper, that
Uh-huh.
many years ago. And like nowadays, I have feelings nowadays where, okay, let's say someone, whatever, someone does something really bad, right? Just morally, just
Yeah.
really bad.
Yeah. They burned down a orphanage.
right.
Yeah.
And, do I think
Right. Your
it's
favorite.
interesting.
So let's make a hypothetical, right? Your favorite director burns down orphanages in his spare time,
Okay, sure.
right? So yeah, what do you do with that?
It gets into so many things, because it's not just about, can I enjoy this artist's work anymore? It's also like, how do I feel about, especially the
Babies.
six how do I feel about orphans to begin with? First off, let's establish that. No, but like, how do I feel about this artist burning down orphanages left and right,
Right.
and just making millions of dollars as well?
Right. Right.
Like, that's another aspect of it.
Right.
So it becomes like, is that on the distribution company to make a moral judgment? Like, is
Uh-huh.
that, and how do I feel about that even?
Right.
Because I don't know that I don't know that there's an end all be all, like, who should be making these decisions. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
these are thoughts that I have that are like, well, it's like, I don't know, like, maybe I'd be less inclined to go buy a movie ticket of someone who, burns down orphanages.
Right. Right.
And maybe that's just the consumer's, discretion.
Right.
You have a lot of people that seem to believe that, no one should distribute the work of someone like that, right?
Right.
Which I can understand that.
Right.
But deep down, I wish that, I don't know, I wish the lines between the person and the art created by said person have become, increasingly blurred. Uh, I think for various reasons, and that's why maybe some of my feelings have changed on it too. I,
Because until you know that they burn down orphanages, you don't even have to worry about that as a possibility. Right.
right.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But now I think what I'm hearing you say, and maybe you've said this kind of thing in the past, so maybe that's what I'm saying, but like, it's so much easier in 2021 to know that this is an orphan burner than it was in whatever 1990.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's also easier to know that people think that someone is an orphan burner.
Right.
So it's
Right.
interesting, but that is true. Like,
Right.
in general, there's a lot more information to be had, than when I was like in high school looking at like the 3 Harmony Korine interviews that existed. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like,
Yeah. It's hard to
nowadays,
get
it's like,
access to a creator in a way. It
yeah,
used to be hard. Yeah.
now you just go on their Instagram or go on their Twitter, and it's like, I mean, social media is a whole other conversation, but
Yeah.
it's like, you get into a place where the consumer who's consuming the art also
Yeah.
feels like they have this relationship with the artist, which is like
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
pretty wild, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas I feel like back in the day, to me, whatever kind of art it was more of this, like, you had fanatics or whatever, but it's like this untouchable thing. Like, I'll never meet Martin Scorsese or whatever it is,
Right. Right.
Uh,
Okay. So I think I have the basic idea. So I'll restate it just to make sure we're on the same page. So what I'm hearing you say is, ideally, what you want when you experience art is to be able to divorce the experience of the art from the person who created it, because it's not immediately relevant to your understanding of this work. and
Yeah.
yet we live in a world where like there's all sorts of noise about who made something, what they've done, you know, who they're sleeping with, where they went last Saturday night, right? All of these things. And I guess maybe just to put it plainly, like there's something annoying about this intruding on your appreciation of pieces. Is that accurate?
Yeah, there is something
Okay.
annoying about it to it for some of it, because like,
Yeah.
because I am very much a person. I don't give a, you know, I don't care who anyone's dating.
Yeah, you can cuss. Yeah.
If 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 someone's burning orphanages down, then I may have feelings about that. But like
Yeah.
as far as some things that people uh get angry at, you know, whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I picked Burning Orphanages because it is something that like you don't really hear. We shouldn't watch a director because he burns orphanages. But there's actually something to that, right? Like surely no one is saying that if let's say there's a dude in prison who killed a guy and he paints a picture, that we're not allowed to look at that picture, or that we should somehow not appreciate his art, right? I don't think anybody's making that point. What's funny is that it's almost like it has to come before. You have to make the work and then kill the guy.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
also, you know, I don't know. It's like there's there's definitely art that I've enjoyed. There's absolutely art that I've enjoyed that, you know, has been created by probably a terrible, terrible human being, right?
Yeah.
And like, is it the fact that like I don't know, it's like, why shouldn't that be accessible to me? It
Right.
should be accessible to me. I should be able to look at, I don't care, like
Well,
what draws people, hold on, let
yeah.
me just,
Okay.
what
Sure.
draws people to like watching shit about like Jeffrey Dahmer, right?
Sure.
There's a fascination there. So if you
Yeah.
learn that, hey, there's these 5 like short films and they were directed by this guy who just went around burning down orphanages,
Yeah.
I may want to check it out just to like, with that context being like,
Yeah.
what kind of movies, you know? I think what gets weird is like, do I believe that it should be distributed? Do I believe that it should be promoted? Do I believe, you know, like, I don't know. And I think again that gets into like, you and I think are people who we like to sort of decide if something is for us or not, whether or not we'd like to consume something, right? And you know, do I think that everyone, I don't know, it gets into
Okay.
like almost
Right.
politics at that
So
point.
let's be concrete. So let's see if we can try to answer some of these questions. So can you think of a time when it is your responsibility to not experience a piece of art because of something the creator has done?
Where it's my responsibility?
Well, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I feel like that's sort of the crux of the issue. Like you're responding to this idea that some people are suggesting it is the viewer's responsibility to be aware of the things that the creators have done and then not consume their art. Maybe I've misunderstood.
Well, I don't know how I feel about that, because I believe that to be true, yes, for myself.
That
Like,
there are no circumstances where you're sort of morally obligated to avoid art. Is that the
yeah, but at the
okay?
same time, like I'm also a type of person who like, if someone does something shitty or whatever and they release a movie, I may not go see it. I may not be interested in going
Right.
to see it because of that reason.
Right.
I guess my point is, like, I will decide that.
Yeah.
Now, meanwhile, Sony or whoever it is like pumping all this money to distribute this thing done by this horrible person. And
Right.
so I don't really know how I feel about that, to be
Okay.
honest.
So to try to incorporate that and to say it back to you, what I hear you saying is that the consumer has no responsibility to police the actions of the creators. The responsibilities may lie on distributors, but you're not really sure. Is that a
Sure.
good summary?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to ask you again, just to make sure that like we're on the same page. There's nothing you can imagine somebody doing that would create a moral obligation in consumers to say, like, if you watch this movie, you're a bad person just because you've watched it. You've done something wrong by watching this movie.
I don't think so, because I go
Okay.
into, like, if you don't want to support the person, monetarily, then pirate it. Like,
Right.
watch what you want to watch.
Right. I definitely hear you saying, like, it's up to you ultimately. If you want to watch, that's fine. If you don't want to watch, that's fine. There's no problems either way.
Yeah.
But let me try to be pointed just to really see if you're stuck behind this. Not stuck, but like how serious it is to you. So your favorite director who you don't know anything about, you've been watching him for years. He's got a new movie come out, and at the same time, you're finding out that he's actually just a serial killer. Right? And he's killed hundreds of people in brutal ways. What I hear you saying, I think, is that it's ultimately up to each individual person to decide whether or not they should watch his movies.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Is there anything you think that would make you less sure of that? Or is there anything that maybe pushes you down away from that?
I don't think so. I guess what I would say is, within the boundaries of the law, like,
Like if the work itself is against the law, something like that.
Yeah. I'm not supporting someone like watching what,
Right.
But like, if I wanted to see some weird short film directed by Jeffrey Dahmer,
Right. Or a rom-com directed by Jeffrey
a
Dahmer,
rom-com
right? Like it
directed
doesn't,
by
yeah.
then I if I want to, I'll look that up and I'll download it and I'll watch it.
Right. It shouldn't be I definitely hear you saying, like, it's not your moral or legal responsibility to police that.
Yes, unless it's something that's literally illegal.
Unless it's something that's literally illegal, yeah. But otherwise, it's just a matter of like your perception. Okay. So
your own
so
more, whether you want to watch it or not.
I'm going to try to push back on this and see like what's going on here. So there certainly are people who would say that there is a responsibility that lies in the consumer. What do you think their arguments are? Like, what are those people concerned about who say, like, the consumer needs to be aware? You all right, man?
Sorry, I'm getting used to this thing. I'm trying to quit smoking.
So you want me to say it again, or did you get it?
Well, if you want to say it again, you can.
So there's people who would disagree. Where do you think they're coming from?
My first initial thought is that if we're just talking about another consumer like me, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're saying people.
Yep, absolutely.
The first thing I'm thinking about is like a group of people on Twitter, right?
Okay, yeah.
being like, you should not watch XYZ. Where is that coming from? I think it's just coming from, their personal beliefs and convictions. The difference is they're able to broadcast that to a lot of people, including me, on a social media platform. And so there's power in that too. You know what I mean? Like, if you say like, you shouldn't watch, movie Y, and 60,000 people retweet you, there is power in that, and you're probably going to change a couple people's minds, maybe, but like for me, ultimately, I'm going to watch something if I want to. I think the only difference would be like, if I don't want to support somebody, I won't. I'll steal the movie,
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just the truth. It's like, if I morally feel a certain way about a director or whatever, then, but I still want to see the film for whatever reason, I just won't support them monetarily. Seeing the film doesn't make me feel morally bad, whether or not there's a million people telling me not to look at something,
Okay. All right. So I'm going to try to say it back just to make sure I understood. So what I think I heard you say was that your initial guess as to why these people feel the way they do is that they're trying to change people's minds. They're trying to say, look, the stuff this guy did is wrong. And I want to try to make it so that fewer people support his work. And so they're trying to change minds. Is that what you're saying?
Or
Okay.
they're trying to put pressure on, the distribution company, or they're trying to inform people about something, which is totally fine. You know what I'm saying? But
so I'm hearing
at the end of the day, I'll make the decision,
Yeah. I'm hearing pressure.
I wouldn't even call it pressuring. Like, say what you want. If you want people to change their minds on something, that's fine. That's your prerogative.
Okay.
But like, it's up to me whether I agree or listen or whatever,
Okay. Okay. So what about a situation where the medium itself has something to do with what this person is doing wrong? So let's say it's a director who abuses the actors in some way, or maybe he just never pays anybody, something like that, right? Like, they're doing something wrong within the medium itself. Does that push you towards their moral obligation, or are you still neutral?
I'd like to say I'm still neutral on the basis of, like, again, if I whether or not I want to support the movie by purchasing it. As an example, you hear about like a movie that I love and that you showed me early on was Eraserhead, and like, there's stories about the makeup in Eraserhead, and it was burning, mashed potato lady's cheeks and whatever.
I think even in the Wizard of Oz, the makeup that the witch wore caused skin burns or something like that. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, but the Wizard of Oz is still the Wizard of Oz. It's like, I guess it comes down to, and this is a bit tangential, but like, whoever directed it, it's like, oh, if you don't like the director, it's like, okay, who produced it? Like, there's so many people that were involved in the Wizard of Oz, and the Wizard of Oz stands on its own as a piece of art sort of regardless of how it was created, or I don't know.
Yeah,
I would like to say that I agree with you, that or not agree with you, but with what you said, like that is my stance, that regardless of whether or not there was something done, you know, like we're not talking about, a snuff film,
right,
but like
right,
if a director did something poorly
right,
during directing or whatever, or an actor got hurt or whatever, it's like that's not on me whether or not to enjoy the content.
right. I
Or
definitely hear you making a distinction between, like, if there was a crime committed, that is a problem, right? Like a snuff film is still murder. You're not saying it's not murder or something like that, right? It
yeah,
doesn't suddenly transcend murder to become art. It's still
there's
murder.
still a problem,
Yeah,
and in the case of David Lynch, it's like I would hope that on the next movie maybe try a different mixture for your
right,
makeup or whatever. But
right.
if he doesn't, I don't know, man. Like um, if that just became his thing, if that was David Lynch's thing,
Right,
just like burning people with the makeup he
right,
uses,
right.
I may be less inclined to watch his stuff. But
Sure, yeah.
but
Yeah,
like that is a problem.
it
But
seems like
does it mean that there's a does it mean that like I can't watch Eraserhead? No.
so. Okay, I think I understand now. So I'm going to try to say this really tightly. So it kind of sounds like what we're coming back to is the idea: is the consumer culpable or responsible for a wrong that a creator has done? Maybe that's really what the issue is the question. Like, if if you watch a movie in which the makeup has burned an actor, are you somehow responsible? And you say no. Is that kind of the crux?
Correct. I mean,
And you're saying I'm not responsible no matter how many times I watch this movie or how much money I spent on the movie.
I'm not responsible, but I'm also the type of person that if there's something I disagree with, I probably won't spend money on it.
All right. So I'm gonna give you a hypothetical, and this is gonna be all right. I'm really trying to push at this idea to see where it breaks down. Let's say there's a director that you've personally decided, he keeps using this makeup that burns people. I'm not into this. I'm personally not going to support him. But you find out there's this guy in California who is obsessed with this director and watches every movie that comes out, donates money to him, right? Just like gives him he gives him every sort of benefit or boon that he can think of. Would you say that he is somewhat responsible for this continued behavior?
Just from a viewership perspective.
Yeah, this guy, he's like
I
the
mean,
ultimate fanboy, right? He keeps giving this guy money.
is he responsible for the behavior? No, he's not responsible for the behavior.
Okay.
I can understand that, doing something and being rewarded for it might, that's problematic in some ways. If someone does something bad and continues to be rewarded for doing bad things, sure. I don't think that I don't necessarily think that that's on that person though. I think ultimately things come down to either, a court of law, or, if there's a really shitty director, even though he pulls in money, let's say,
Yeah.
I would hope, or I would want, ideally, for, you know, like a production house or whatever to be like, I'm not working with that guy. Like, that's a personal decision. Let's say in the case of, you know, the orphan burner, right?
Mhm.
Like, I would be a little bit surprised if people continue to work with him, or if it
Right.
didn't end up in a court of law if this was a known fact. You know what I
Right.
mean? So is it, you know, this dude in California who sends all this money to this guy, like,
Right.
is it his responsibility? Did he commit the crime? No. Is he perpetuating it? Are people like him perpetuating it? Possibly.
So
Possibly.
is that enough for culpability? Is that enough for responsibility? Because I heard you say
Well,
perpetuating.
yeah, I'm not sure. I think it would have to. I don't know that that's a decision that I could make. It would be a thing where it's like, you know, at what percentage do I decide? Like, let's say this dude is funding his movies 100%,
Right.
then
Right.
sure, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
screw that guy, right?
Right. All right.
And
Right. And the director's so toxic, no one will work with him. But there's this one dude who bankrolls his movies. At
yeah,
that point,
and
you'd say that he has some culpability.
sure, sure.
Okay. Okay.
But I'd also be very, I would wonder about who the hell is distributing this movie and why they're still
Right.
on board as well. Like,
Right.
um,
I mean, maybe this guy pays for it, right? Self-publishing or whatever you want to call it.
and you know what? At that point, like, even if I wanted to, I could get on Twitter and scream at the top of my lungs and be like, I don't think anyone should watch this. But I don't think to me, it's not a matter of, watching it or not. My moral thing is like, I guess if I feel sort of morally in a gray space about something, I probably won't pay for it.
Right. I definitely hear this idea that the act of consuming the media is wholly divorced from the idea of contributing
Purchasing it,
to
I
it,
guess. Yeah.
right? And you're saying like on the one end of the spectrum, you've got the single guy who bankrolls this bad director's movies, and on the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got a person who watched a free showing of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you're saying on this end of the spectrum, like there's some culpability because they're perpetuating. Without this guy bankrolling, there wouldn't be
The
any
movie
more
wouldn't get made.
makeup
Right.
that burns actors' faces, right? But on this side of this thing, you're saying, look, taking in a movie, watching a movie isn't perpetuating its creation. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, yeah, if a theater is showing it and you're paying $15, then you're contributing in some way to something,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
But
that's sort of that's where the culpability comes from, is the contribution.
yeah, but like I said, the culpability is an interesting term because it's like, I guess collectively, I don't know, it gets down to like, I'd be interested to know the numbers. You know,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
would be interested to know, you know, what percentage of this production is funded by fans, what percentage is funded by whatever, you know, like
Grants or something like that.
yeah, all of that would be interesting to know in a case like that.
Mhm.
And I think if it's something that is, you know, legally wrong, then like that's not my decision either to you know, to make a decision about that. But the act of me consuming a piece of art, let's just say for free,
Yeah.
I feel no like, and I may watch it with a bias. I might watch it and the whole time be like, fuck this guy, you know,
Yeah.
I know what this guy did and whatever. And that might, I mean, that in itself is another viewing experience.
Sure.
That's an
It's an
experience.
emotion that was put into you by, art. Yeah.
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 Yeah. That's a different experience based on, other context. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that there's value in that, in the sense that like there's value in art, you know.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. All right. So I think I understand the idea a lot better. Um, and it seems like there's some sort of maybe, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe there's a culpability that comes from how much did this contribute to him, to this person like doing bad things. And that's the ultimate sort of like, if you're the only bankroller, maybe you're the one who is somewhat responsible.
yeah, maybe if
But
it's like this known thing and he
right,
just and he's just like, I'm not gonna stop doing that. I'm gonna keep hurting my actors. Like,
right,
sure, yeah.
right.
Um, if the
But
guy bankrolling it doesn't know about that, then I got nothing
right,
for that, you
right.
know.
I think what we've come to is this, is it almost makes the decision easier, because it's about what contribution you've made towards enabling this act.
Yeah. Yeah. Which which brings up an interesting thought to me too, which is that like, and I'm not using this as an example because I think anything about this person, but let's say like recent discourse about Dave Chappelle, right?
Okay.
Um, the way that media, the way that we consume things nowadays, it's like, where are you gonna watch Chappelle's special, right? You're gonna watch it in the most convenient place that it is, probably, which is Netflix. You know, I
Okay.
don't know all the details of whatever, but like I haven't even seen it yet, to be honest.
Right.
But so it's like, if you watch it on the most convenient thing, you are contributing
Okay.
monetarily.
Okay.
You know, do you have such conviction about this person that you want to sort of go the extra length to watch something illegally or whatever, and not spend any money on it?
Right.
Like, I get into a question of, I think there's situations where maybe that's a thing, but there's also just like, to me, I probably just wouldn't watch it. Uh, I probably just wouldn't watch it if I felt that strongly. I don't know. Um, I'm not quite sure where I'm really trying to go with this, but like,
Mm-hmm.
you just made me think. It just made me think about the fact that like, nowadays, the easiest way to experience something a lot of times is like a paid subscription, you know.
Okay.
And I guess I'm just sort of like thinking about how that has affected things as well. Um, you know, it's like, back in the day, if you didn't like a musician, you wouldn't go buy their album.
Sure.
Nowadays, you hear about some musician who did some terrible thing, and you want to hear what they're all about, and you go on iTunes and you hit play. You're
Right.
paying them, you know, a fraction of a penny. That's on you, I guess, as to whether or not you feel morally wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in my case, if I don't like If I don't like something, I'm probably not going to watch it. And would I feel bad about contributing a fraction of a penny
Right.
to someone who did something terrible? Not necessarily. It's not going to keep me up at night,
Right.
And I understand that that's a compounding thing. If
Right.
there's millions of people just like me, then they're going to continue to make money. But like, I don't know, man, I can only do so much,
Yeah.
it's like they're morally wrong to me. It would take a lot more to make me feel morally like I've done something morally wrong than watch something from a creator that is a shitty person, I guess. I don't know. But the money is sort of where it all kind of gets gray to me.
So
the money
I
is
think,
where I start going,
yeah. I think we found a sort of maybe an interesting way to objectively answer this question, right? Like, how much you contribute to their doing this bad act again. But I want to push even further. Maybe this was a good place to stop, but in the interests of being maybe a little pushy,
push on, brother.
it kind of makes me think. It makes me think about an argument that I've heard, which is that it's not enough to be passively against injustice. You know what I'm talking about? You've heard this?
Yeah.
And I think such a person might say, it's not even enough not to consume their art. If you're not educating people, if you're not arguing against people spending their penny, right? There's millions of people spending pennies. And if you're not arguing against them spending a penny, you still have a culpability. What would you say to that? Does that ring true to you at all, or is it kind of like, eh?
I think that there are certain situations where maybe that would ring true to me. I don't think that the consumption of a movie or a piece of art
Yeah.
would be one of them. I think that you can hate Hitler and you can look up Hitler's paintings, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like if I were to Google right now, Adolf Hitler paintings, would I feel morally wrong for having looked at his art? No.
And would it make a difference if you go, oh, that's a pretty one?
No.
Does that make, yeah, right. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because, there was a horrible injustice done and whatever. Now, like, do I agree with that sentiment with certain things? Horrible injustices in the world or whatever. Yes. But at the same time, I'm also, I'm a selfish person. I would say almost that I would say in some cases I agree with that statement, and yet at the same time I may not be the poster boy for that, because a lot of times I get very short-sighted and just sort of just trying to plug along my day, I think that, if there was something going on, some people would probably say there was something going on that warranted some sort of uprising or whatever, then fine. Yeah, I get it. I get the sentiment of that. I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that I'm also like, I mean, to be fair, you know, I'm a white dude with a job that like, yeah, I'm a white dude with a job. I
Yeah.
you know, I work and I consume, and
Yeah.
I I like to think that for a lot of things in this world, I'm you know, I'm a what you would call an ally, I guess. But am I super active? You know, no, I'm not. I'm pretty selfish day to day. You know, it's me and the people immediately around me, you know. So part of me agrees with that sentiment, but not when it comes to watching a film or something like that, because I also think that there's an interesting conversation to be had with like time, you know. It's a whole different thing for us to look up, you know, Adolf Hitler paintings in 2021 uh than like if we were rushing to buy one in like 1945. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
there is a difference there.
Yeah.
And
I
so it's
definitely,
like,
I hear you making the point that even if there's an atrocity associated with this, right? Like it's hard to pick a more uh, gut a gut punch example than Hitler, right? But like even with an atrocity, there may still be value to the art.
yeah, and yes, and you know, unfortunately, I think that there could be some value to that art that's maybe problematic. Um, you know, maybe there's people who believe what he believed or whatever, who enjoys art for that reason and use it in that way or whatever. And it's like, okay, but say that you didn't know who painted it, right? You show someone a painting, they can appreciate the painting. The painting is a painting. The painting is not, you know, another appendage. The painting is its own entity.
Mhm.
Um, I do think that there's some gray there. They're like in like what I said about, you know, time. Um,
Right. In 2021, the Titanic sinking is a punchline.
right. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so like as an example, it's like if I see someone, let's say a comedian, right, who gets canceled, uh, you know, just can't book any shows, can't do any more specials, whatever
Mhm.
it is. In 20 years, in 30 years, in 40 years, in 50 years, like, does that art still hold this like moral obligation for you not to watch it? You know,
Mhm.
like I just, art is art, and art outlives the person that makes it. And I don't know, like,
Yeah.
morally, if I feel that something is wrong, I'll make that decision for myself.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not putting down anyone who wants to voice their opinion, whether it be online or in person or whatever. But like, I think if you know, if someone came up to me and was like, "I can't believe you downloaded and watched Jeffrey Dahmer's short film,"
Right.
I'd be like, "Okay." I mean, like, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know what to say to that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. You know, I don't feel morally wrong for
Yeah.
consuming art. Uh, Money gets funny, but it always does.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've definitely explored this, and like it's tricky talking about ethics. It's tricky talking about like atrocities and you know, all of the stuff, like it really starts to permeate all sorts of things. Because we, especially at the end, we really started touching on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you like taking the time to think through this stuff. You know, the whole point of these conversations is to say, like, it's okay to explore ideas. You know, this stuff is complicated and hard to think about, and I don't know how did you feel about the conversation?
Uh, I felt that it was a good conversation. I felt like conversations like this need to happen more often, to be honest. Like, I think that people are very quick to, you know, have convictions and not explore them with anyone. And, you know, whether it's this topic or any other topic, I think it's important to talk to people and talk to people that, you know, this kind of harkens back a bit, but it's like, this is an example of a conversation rather than an argument, you know. And I think that nowadays, and you know, nowadays I personally see a lot of arguing going on and less
Yeah.
conversating, you know.
All right. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah, dude.